So in page 127, you know, the summary, 127, the summary of this idea of, you know, here in page 121, there's a couple of pages where just, you know, the idea of these couple of pages, you know, healing is about good vibes. That was just like a, you know, something funny came to my mind. But so the summary of this is like everything we experience, everything we see, you're holding a book maybe, or you're touching a pen, or just, you know, touching the sofa. To our senses, everything seems solid. Otherwise, we might be dizzy and our head would be spinning. But the reality of this is like there's nothing you perceive that is actually not in motion, you know, not in vibration. Everything that you see is made out of atoms that are like, you know, vibrating. And as science advances, they, you know, tell us, you know, there's every time smaller particles and they, you know, rotate in different ways, whatever it is. So science keeps evolving. But, you know, the Buddha, the Kashmiris, all these people, you know, and all the people before that, there was no actual written transmission, so we don't know. These people knew all these things, you know, they could perceive things and say, yeah, I mean, this looks like this, but in nature, this is, you know, it looks solid, but in nature, this is actually just energy vibrating. So that's very convenient because then, how to say, if we are able to remind ourselves of that, we become very, very flexible. You know, anything that happens or anything that happens, you know, it's just in motion. So if you don't like it, it will change. And if you like it too much, don't attach too much to it, because it will also change. You know, so that's the nature of things. You know, it's not very complicated to understand. And then one of the topics, or one of the things that I thought was, you know, appropriate to discuss today, which along with the next practice that we'll do, is this idea of traumas and mental patterns and mental habits. You know, by no means I want to minimize anything that happens to anybody, because we all experience things, you know, differently, and obviously, you know, the things that happen to all of us are of different degrees, and some lives have, you know, more intense situation than others. So you know, I hope you know, this is clear. Yet, okay. The only certainty that we have in life is this idea of uncertainty, of everything is a constant motion, everything's in constant change. So when we hold to things as them being fixed, when we hold to a marriage as being forever, or when we hold to a friend of being there forever, or you know, anything can change at any given point, you know. So while we don't want to dwell on that all the time, because, you know, things might get a bit, you know, I mean, I think it's nice just to kind of be aware of that, and at the same time just have it there in the background to the ability that you can endure the reality that we don't know what will come first, breakfast or death. You know, that's a saying, we don't know. Okay, but at the same time, you know, we experience things, and if that is not very set in our energy system, in our mindset, things affect us very deeply, you know, or, you know, things maybe happen at an early age that, you know, our nervous system was not very well still developed, and you know, obviously things took a toll and are there, and, you know, create like blockages and barriers, and just, you know, this sense of shame or this sense of guilt. Yeah, there's all these things that happen. Okay. So therapy and you know, talk, you know, sessions and all these things can be very useful if the person is ready. But at the same time, you see people that have gone through years of psychotherapy and study of dreams, you know, 20, 30, 50 years, and they're talking about the same thing that happened when they were 7 or 5, or, you know. Okay, so the suggestion here is that from an intellectual level, from an analytical level, it's easy to understand things. You can tell somebody very easily, well, I mean, that happened in the past, why to worry about it today? Okay, so yeah, I mean, yeah, everybody understands that. Okay, your abuser, or that death, or that bankruptcy, or that injury, yeah, happened, you know, 50 years ago. Okay, that's very easy to understand, but obviously, the imprints on the nervous system on the different layers of the subconscious mind are very profound. So it's not so easy to change us in that way. We may be able to cope, but very often it requires a different approach. One of the simplest approaches that I have found, that if people put the time, is the observation of the sound of the breath. Okay. When you observe the breath, and usually when you pass the threshold of the 15 minutes, for some reason there's, 14 minutes, 15 minutes, there's a threshold that happens. Okay? You start entering into aspects of the mind that are completely covered by the waves of day-to-day activity. There's so much going on. Even when you think, oh, I'm resting, if you look into yourself, I mean, there's no rest because there's constant activity. You say, oh, I went to sleep. Well, if you observe somebody sleeping, they constantly move, they clench their teeth, they they shake, or then they go into dream state, and there's all this. So rest, it's relative rest. Why? Because the mind has so much to deal with. So the practice of observing the breath, listening to the sound of our breath, it's a very special practice that brings you first to the threshold of deepening your experience, conscious experience of the different layers of the mind, to points where the mind is extremely still. And through observing or listening, like feeling this gentle friction that happens with the breath, you don't have to do anything special with the breath. You just observe the breath, but you really fine-tune your awareness to this sensation of the sound of the breath. To this, you're obviously applying the principles of presence, the principles of softness, and there's just this sense of just presence that is vital, that is aware. Now, there's no idea of you stop any kind of mental processes. The beauty of this process is almost like, for those of you who have walked El Camino, maybe Ellen and Gary, and you're walking through the plains of Castilla, and it's a flat walk. You're going to be there for like whatever, 15 miles, 16 miles. You see the place where you're going is straight ahead. I mean, it's just like flat. It's hot. And the only thing you can do is walk. Nothing is going to take you there. Yet it's through the process of walking through this discomfort, that you are polishing the mirror of the mind, the mirror of the intent. So here is exactly the same practice. So you're breathing, and you don't attempt to stop anything that is happening. Your breath is, your awareness is on the breath, but on the sound of the breath. And you just, whatever arises, you naturally let it be. You're aware of the breath, but because you're soft, you're also naturally, the breath is like helping you just be aware of your being. Within your being, there's all these processes, and you're sitting there, and all these thoughts keep coming, and this happened with my sister, I have to do this, the kids that, or my team, whatever it is, my team won, whatever it is, So whatever comes, naturally, the thoughts that are coarser, like more coarse, that have less grasp on the mind, those naturally will subside sooner. But now the things that are a bit deeper, that had more grasp on you, naturally those will start appearing, and this sense of self-loathing, or this sense of I'm not good enough, whatever it is that starts coming up, that I think, most of us have our fair share of things. So the beauty of this is like almost as if you had like, just to give you an idea, but it's not exactly, but you had like a file, you know, like a file that you call it a file, this thing that you, or this very nice sandpaper, you know? So the breath is acting like this. So you keep going down, and not that you're going down, like naturally the mind becomes more expansive, and the breath keeps softening, softening, softening. If you're going through a hard time or you're going through a process of whatever it is, you sit, and you just let the breath, something like this beautiful, it's between a caress and this gentle, like filing away. And it's completely, it's not something that you intend to do. Your only intention is to observe the breath. There's no exertion. To observe the sound of the breath. Now, just saying one more thing, and then we'll do a few minutes of this. Traditionally, you know, some teachers, I was just listening to a talk by the Dalai Lama the other day. He was giving a Kala Chakra empowerment. And when he discusses the posture of, meditation posture, he says, and make the breath so quiet that you cannot hear it, you know. In the Bhagavad Gita, also Krishna says, like when you exhale, if you put your finger below your nose, you should not even feel the breath, okay? That refers, based on my understanding and based on, what I heard some of my teachers refer to, that refers to a different kind of breath that naturally happens when the breath becomes very internalized and we're breathing through the central channel, okay? But that happens naturally, it's not something that you can force. Here, the breath is completely natural and is your breath. Whatever your breath is, that's what you're observing. Sometimes even, I'm sure from yoga classes or something, you've heard this term Ujjayi breath, where the throat is slightly like the throat is almost slightly locked, and the breath becomes a bit more nasal. It's like very gentle, So at the beginning, you might emphasize that a little bit if you want. So this breath, this exercise, this type of practice is a practice that is worth to take as one of your main practices for a long, long time. You're sitting. This is very relaxing at the beginning. It's a practice that is also very good to improve the state of the digestive system. The large intestine and the stomach channel are directly connected to the nose. So this micro vibration that is happening, it actually is very good for the digestive system. It goes down the esophagus, into the stomach, and into the intestines. And I guarantee you, you have my money back promise guarantee that this is actually one of the best kinds of therapy that you can have. I mean, this doesn't mean you don't have to go, if you have a therapist or somebody you like to talk to, that is super wonderful and it has great benefit. Obviously, it depends on the quality of the therapist, of the psychologist, whomever you see. But this is something you can do for yourself. It's an incredible form of self therapy. if somebody, if what this practice reminds you, what to say, what situation does this practice remind you? What nature situation does this practice remind you? If something comes to mind, you can put it in the chat. And if not, I'll tell you what reminds me. Yeah, see. Exactamente. Ghazala won the prize. Just the ocean, like she said, like the conch or something, but exactly like that, this is the ocean. This is the ocean of your being. This is the infinite ocean of your being. Where things on the shore are polished, like these rocks that are there on the shore or something, the glasses are polished and become beautiful, when you're at the seashore or the ocean shore, and you find this, piece of green glass that has been, tumbling around and now it's this beautiful pebble. There's no sharp edges anymore. Now it's beautiful. So this is what this practice does. It purifies, it softens, and then it just, exactly. Also the wind, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The wind also, moving. So this is extremely beautiful. It's a beautiful practice. It's actually one of my main practices. Years ago, one of my dearest teachers, within a context that escapes our explanation here, but shared with me this practice, and it has been since then, one of my main practices. It's something that I really, really treasure, and it's very simple, but it requires that you take the time. It requires time. You have to go in it, and it's like it has all this process of foreplay, and then sitting there and being with it. It's just really allowing that just to touch you, to surrender to this breath. Because it is through this breath, through this motion, that we just gradually can reach deeper aspects of our mind, and then naturally things surface and can be released, can be put in perspective. Focused, observing, aware of the sound of the breath, yet as you practice, the sound of the breath remains as the focus, but the amount of exertion that you need to put at the beginning, you need to put more, because there's more thoughts and there's more, there's more things happening. So you need to put a bit, almost force for the mind to be abiding in the sound of the breath. But gradually, as you are more relaxed, the sound of the breath is there and you're still like completely aware of it, but your body relaxes and you don't need to put any kind of effort. It's just, oh, that's what I'm observing. And the practice is 100% observing the sound of the breath. It doesn't change. Okay, this specific practice is being aware of the sound of the breath. There's no need to evoke any images. There's nothing. If something comes to mind, it's just one more mental object. It doesn't correspond. You stay with the sound of the breath. If a memory of a trauma comes, if a memory of something comes, you just let it be. You know, like here we always get deliveries, you know, through the day, you know, UPS, whatever comes, Amazon. Okay, so if I'm working in my computer, I don't go to the door to get the package. I'm just doing something. You know? Whenever I go later, I get the package. So this is the same thing, you know, you are focused very softly, but mindful of the sound of the breath. And then anything that comes into the field of experience, it's touched without having to do anything by the sound of the breath. You just keep experiencing this micro vibration that happens. What you can do and what naturally might happen is like, you know, you can observe the sound of the breath on the nose, or on the throat, or on the chest. That you can just play with it if you want. One of the physical benefits of this practice is like, if you do this practice regularly, it will make you feel very youthful. I mean, I know all of you are very young and very youthful, but there's like kind of different youthfulness, kind of different freshness that happens, you know? Like if you see both Ghazala and Samantha that, you know, put here, so, you know, the ocean, the wind, you know, the breeze. So these are like things where we feel refreshed, we feel renewed, you know? So if you sustain this practice, that's actually what's happening in your mind. I mean, it's not happening anywhere else. It's happening in your mind, it's happening in your body. So it gives you this sense of freshness, of renewal, you know, of potential, of infinite potential, of being boundless. You know, the wind is boundless, you know, the ocean waves, you know, like this beautiful dynamic expression of life. The sound of the breath is the mantra of mantras, is the prayer of prayers. You know? And you know, again, like, you know, many things that are, you know, when I say, well, this could be this or that, but this can only be this way. You know, regardless of what your prayer is, whatever your tradition is, like breath is involved in that prayer. Any sound that you're uttering, you know, it comes through the breath. You know. So one of the highest forms of prayer, you know, I won't say it's the highest, but it's certainly the mantra of mantras and the prayer of prayers. And this goes along with when it's united, you know. So you are uniting awareness of being with awareness of the sound of the breath. And then you're softening. And that's very beautiful.